Welcome to Stress-Free IEP. You do not need to do it all alone. With your host, Francis Shefter, Principal of Shefter Law. You can get more details and catch prior episodes at www.shefterlaw.com. The Stress-Free IEP video podcast is also posted on YouTube and LinkedIn, and you can listen to episodes through Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, and more. Now, here's the host of Stress-Free IEP, Francis Shefter.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the show. And for those of you that are watching live in Maryland, happy second week of school. I can't believe it's already here. Hopefully it's going well for you. Our special guest today is Jared Kallen from Action Pact Coaching. And Jared's title is Chief Excuse Buster and Major Fun Instigator, which I absolutely love, Jared, because I think all of us need that. Tell us a little bit more about it. What do you mean by Chief Excuse Buster?
Thanks for asking, and thanks for having me. Basically, we all make excuses in life, but in particular with the neurodivergent population, they tend to make quite a bit of excuses. And it tends to be not about them, but more in the sort of like blaming, shaming mode, why didn't you get the work done? My mom didn't tell me I had to do it, or the teacher is awful, and so why should I do the work? I didn't get enough sleep last night, but that's because my mom or dad forgot to put the alarm on, or they didn't feed me enough food, or whatever it is, and it can go on and on, as you can see. So, one of the keys I found is just that you have to first develop the rapport, which is the second part of your question, I think. But once you do that, then to get growth and development and change, real change, you have to be able to call people on their stuff, or else it doesn't really move as well as it should. If that makes sense.
The accountability piece. Yeah, no, totally. Yeah. I love that. So through your coaching, you're building the rapport and then helping your clients hold themselves accountable through you holding them accountable.
Yeah. So it starts with the rapport. One of my phrases is always like, we're going to have fun first, and then we're going to get things done. And people remember that because it rhymes: fun and done, fun and done. So the goal is to make it fun enough so that any of my clients, they like me, but more importantly, they know that I like them and that I'm, rooting for them at all stages. And so if they feel that, they're much more likely to stop with the baloney excuses, or the ones that really are not relevant or even useless, really. And to move forward with the toolkits that we can provide, and to move forward with change in terms of what they could be doing for themselves to have a more productive life, a more successful life, a happier life, a less codependent life. All these things, sort of gel. And so the major fun is that every kid that or any client I take on, I customize everything to the client. So and that creates identification and strong rapport. So if the kid is a football player, we will talk about football for a while. I may show them a very exciting video about football. I may share that I was a football player, or that I coach football. Or if a kid loves Drake, I may play Drake. I may show a video of anime. Whatever it takes to have the client say, he's got me. He gets it. Like, he's not this, the prototypical, Latin teacher 40 years ago says, pull out your books and start declining amare. I want to go the opposite route. And all the data shows that the more that you engage, especially with the neurodivergent population, but really all teenagers and all young people, I think, the more mileage you get in almost every area that you're trying to, improve upon with that client.
Which is so true. I say that, with IEPs and stuff, especially when we get to our older children, our high school and sometimes even middle school, if they're not buying into the IEP, it doesn't matter what the rest of us are doing. We can write whatever we want, but if the child's not buying in, they're not going to do it. I'm not going. I'm not doing it.
Right.
So,
Absolutely. And what that brings up is that hopefully the rapport that we build gets it to the point where they no longer see the value in oppositionality, to oppose me or anyone. They don't see the point, or they see that it's really a form of self-harm, in other words, I'm going to generalize a lot here. And so we can't just say, but the general tenor is that kids, especially these kind of kids or young people, their first answer is usually no, not yes, whatever it is. Can you organize yourself? Can you use Google Calendar? Would you sync at your iPhone? Can you text me every day with just the stuff you owe for the next day? And if they don't sort of grab onto that, then what do you do? So that's sort of where it starts. The first things you have to get past. In general, there is going to be opposition. Why? Because a lot of these people have been living the same way for years or months or decades, and they've also been enabled from a lot of different areas, whether it's parents, teachers, babysitters. It doesn't matter. It's like ADHD or other problems are often not really addressed. They're sort of enabled. Okay, oh, you don't know how to turn on your alarm. I'll do it. I'm faster than you. It's taking too long. And so that frustrates everybody. But also the main chief target client who I was hired to help is not being helped because on the sidelines, too many other people are lending their help. And it's all well-intentioned. There could be a mom, a dad, an uncle, a caring teacher. But if we're in the business of creating better outcomes for our kids, then we need to heed that and let them be, and let them learn, let them fail, let them make mistakes, let them learn how to self-advocate, and also let them learn how to be clearer communicators. Communication is one of the biggest where things fall apart. For example, I have the kids. Every kid is supposed to text me every day, including weekends, with their plan just for the day, and we take it one day at a time.
wow.
Often the texts don't come over, even though in the very first session we set an alarm, and I give the kid agency. I say, what time would it be good when nobody will be distracting you, when you won't have work, when mom and dad aren't around, where you can text me. It takes about 5 seconds, and so I say, what time? Then they say 10 a.m. Okay, if the text doesn't come over, that's one problem that I would address, and I have to chase them in the beginning. But if the text comes over, just so I'm being clear, and they say work, that tells us nothing. That doesn't tell us, where he or she is in any course, Spanish, English, math, chemistry. It doesn't tell us at what stage they are. It doesn't do anything, to be really honest. But if we can convert it from work to prepare for a Spanish quiz, read first chapter of Great Gatsby, do outline for my Origins of World War I research paper. Now that's 1,000% better text, if that makes sense.
No, totally. And I'm assuming that what you do is whenever you meet with the student, because I know you work with adults also, you set up that plan so that they know what they should be doing every day.
Right.
So that it's not them trying to I don't know what I need to do. Oh, I'll just say this.
Right. Yeah. So, modeling is a huge part of this, a lot of, and I found this out over the years, because sometimes I would write an email right after the session. I always write email recaps that are very detailed, but are also directive, so that they don't have to worry about what I'm trying to do during the session, right? They get it. They go, oh, right. He wants me this, he wants that, and so, but the thing is, sometimes I'll get, just recently I got a simple, I said, why aren't you responding to the emails? Because at the bottom of the email it says, please respond in caps so that I know that we're all on the same page. And then there's no response. So after 2 or 3 emails where there's no response, I said, what's going on? Why is there no response? And then they might say, well, I don't know how to respond or what to respond. What do you mean respond? And then, and now maybe either I failed to communicate that correctly on the first session, or something else was, broken down. We dropped the ball somewhere. And so then I immediately say, oh, just something like, yup, I understand. I got you. Will do. Anything. But you only learn this as you're going through the process, because you might be thinking, oh, the person, this kid doesn't want to learn. This kid doesn't want to grow, change, whatever. And really they're just saying, I don't know what you want me to do. Tell me, show me.
Right. And it's all the communication. What do you do? Because I know like a lot of teenagers are, do this. I got this. Like, I don't need you. I got this. My mom's making me come. How do you handle those type of situations?
Well, it's a great question. First of all, you get that almost all the time, or the majority of the time, because often when you first start with a kid, a younger person, you're going to get resistance, and all you have to do, and it usually happens right after you establish the rapport, because otherwise they don't really want to listen to anything you have to say, right? And maybe that makes sense. So you establish a rapport, you make the connection, you identify with them, you have them identify with you, you let them know that you love them no matter what, okay? And then when they say I got this, and the evidence clearly shows that they don't got this, because you just look at their student portal and you see missed homeworks, not handed in homeworks, not submitted homeworks, complete procrastination, major test on Friday. They didn't even remember they had a test. And that meant that there was a breakdown in the planning, with Google Calendar. Maybe I asked them to input all the important work in the first week on Google Calendar. They didn't do that for whatever reason. They didn't want to do it. They procrastinated to do it. They didn't know how to do it. Who knows? But it did get done. And so then when they say, I got this, and then you just look at the outcome, or you just look at the Google Calendar. I don't see a test on Google Calendar on Friday. Why is it not there? That would indicate that you're not going to be prepared for the test on Friday. And so you have to. It's sort of a mixture between a nuance of just being a real person and fun, sort of, and then also say, wait, I don't see anything. Where is it? Like, how? Why are you not? Why didn't you set up the plan for the week or the month or the entire semester, especially for college kids? So now we're sort of not going in the right direction. How can we reverse it?
I like that. Like, how can we reverse it? Like, holding them accountable to help with a plan. And there was something I want to go back to that you said about the parents. And I mean, I'm a parent. I know, well-meaning as we are, it's easier for us to do it sometimes.
I have kids.
So what do you do to stop the parents from enabling their children or set the expectations?
Well, it's a very important issue. It can be a very thorny issue, as you point out, because no parent really wants to say, you're messing this up, or or even worse, do you realize how you hurt your child if you're always prompting them to do the next task instead of having them develop their own planning system and their own accountability system? So, often what the answer to your question is, often you have to have a side parent coaching in one form or another, either a quick Zoom call, or you set your expectations straight on the contract that you send to the client. The goal is that we're moving from codependence to independence, and part of that means you stepping off or stepping away and letting the process unfold, and then seeing what happens. And so that's sort of, and I don't think that's a hard concept to understand, but it may be a hard concept to actually actuate or implement for any parent. They're like, well, what do you mean? What if he goes out and he continues to not brush his teeth in the morning, or he can never get out of bed? Like, I'm not going to let him not go to school. But then, maybe a better approach is, okay, describe to me exactly what happens in the morning. Then the mom might say, or the dad might say, well, he has 4 alarms. They all go off, but he sleeps through them all. Now we have a problem. Now we have to figure out, how is he sleeping through them all? Is he shutting them all off and then going right back to bed? Is he going to bed at 3 a.m., which many kids do? And so how could any alarm wake him up? Or even if alarm did wake him up and he woke up, how could he go to school and be alert if he's only got 2 hours of sleep? So it's sort of like drilling down on multiple habits that maybe have to get reversed. And usually this is not uncommon. It's usually, we might start with, he's my executive functioning coach, but then I get a lot of feedback from all parents, in the very beginning before I ever start, and then all along the way. And I often ask I say, tell me what you're seeing at the home, because I'm not in the home. What are you seeing? What do you like? What don't you like? Where is there progress? Where is there not progress? And then I might get a whole email on hygiene. Always forgets to brush his teeth, is always late to the car. So then that makes the sister late. Okay. And then the next session, I will talk about, what are you doing, for sleep hygiene, when you're going to bed? Are you on video games till 2 a.m.? How can we curb that back? And then maybe you have to get into negotiation, and that's sort of like where it's more of an art than a science. It's like, if the kid says, look, I hate school and I'm not I'm not going to bed, before 2 a.m. I love video games, and it's also, they might say it's social. I am with friends, so don't tell me I'm just isolating, right? And then you have to say, okay, fine. Okay, so then, can you scale up? This week, can you try going from 2 a.m. to 1? And then if they say yes, and they do it, that's great. Then you might go the next week, 1 to 12, so you can get at least 6 hours of sleep. And then if you built this, ecosystem where there's trust, faith, love, kindness, warmth, support, and yet still the desire for real change and real outcomes, then it might just work.
Right. There's so much to unpack there, because I'm thinking like that it's not, the issue is not necessarily that the child's not getting up for school. Right. And that's you're going in with the parents and the child or the student to figure out why the child's not getting up to school, and then trying, it's kind of like, instead of throwing a drug at a disease, like find out what the reason for the symptom is, and then
exactly
getting it at the root.
And then the accountability piece comes in, but first, and this is what a lot of people forget, I think, is that you have to model how it maybe should go really much better, right? So if for example, let's say a kid is, chronically disorganized and chronically doesn't want to plan ahead and is chronically late to school, then you have to break it down into chunks, like little chunks, like, okay, what time do you start to think about going to sleep? And then right after that, you say, okay, do you put your clothes out at night? Usually it would be a no. You say, could you do that? And then what clothes? And then maybe in the next day or the next week, you say, what clothes did you put out last night? Just to see if they're doing it, and then and on and on and on. So it's sort of like, and you, if you're a good listener, and that is a skill, it's not always to be a good listener. You have to listen, and they'll say, well, I was ready for school, but then I decided to help my sister on something. And then you might have to say, well, why'd you have to help your sister? Or and then they might say, well, because I wanted to do a solid for her. I wanted to help her. And then you say, okay, but then what was the result? Well, we both got in the car late. Mom was pissed off. We got to school late. We were off to a bad start. And so then you have to, it's all like drilling down. So how can we avoid that? If you plan to help your sister in the morning, then you have to plan to get up earlier, reset your alarm, make sure your clothes are out, and then let's go. It's, and that happens with other things too. You get sort of it's sort of like there's a disconnect sometimes between what we want people to do or how to change, and then how to do it. How to really concretely do it. They may say, well, I can't get up any earlier. Then why? What's going on? Do you have a lot of anxiety? Why do you have a lot of anxiety? And then often you can trace the level of anxiety to the low level of organization. So they're linked, they're like inversely proportional. So if you can say, wait, do you like sleep? Hell yeah, I like sleep, Jared. Who doesn't like sleep, right? So then you go, okay, well, do you see that if your Google Calendar is filled up and it's synced to your iPhone, and you know all that you owe for school, right? Then you're going to get more sleep because you'll know what's coming up. You know what you have to do. Hopefully you'll do it. And then you'll be done, instead of fishing around on your student portal at 11 at night and seeing, oh, wow, I have a test, I have a quiz. Oh, wow, it's worth 50 points. I'm screwed. Anything like that. That's bad. So, it all sort of, the most amazing thing about this whole niche of neurodivergent learning and neurodivergent coaching is that there are so many nuances which you're touching on. There are, a lot of things. You get a lot of no's instead of yeses, and you have to turn them into yeses. You get a lot of buts, and you don't want the buts. Like when someone says but, you have to listen really closely. But what? And then to be honest with you, it's a whole language. So if I say to a kid, can you do this? They almost always will say yes. But the next logical question that anyone could ask is, will you do it? Will you do it? And they always do. They might pause, but they always say, I'll do it. It's almost like they've surrendered in the moment, or maybe just the moment, but they say, we'll do it. I'll do it.
It's so funny you say that, because what triggered for me is when I was a kid and we would go up to teachers and say, can I go to the bathroom? And the teachers say, I don't know. Can you? It's like, right. Oh yeah. May I go to the,
Yeah. I mean,
it's all,
it's sort of like, especially within neurodivergent households, there is a lot of family stress. There are a lot of negative family dynamics. There, a lot. Sometimes when I get my first call from a mom or dad, it could be something like, I have had it. I've tried everything. I've modeled everything probably the way you do. And that's true. It's a true statement. But they're at their like wit's end, and they're saying like, and at that point, sometimes they just want to hand the kid over to me and say, just, and I might get a really good email directive from them, which I usually ask for, about the top 5 or 6 things they really want to see changed, or, the top 5 or 6 weaknesses. And then sometimes it's like, just do your thing, and after every session, every parent or client or guardian gets a very detailed email recap from me about what's going right, what's going wrong, where we're making progress, where we're not. And it doesn't just address academic stuff. It's social, emotional, behavioral, attitudes, maybe false narratives that they're harboring. And it's all in there. And the only thing that does, that is someone's very useful, is it gives the parents agency. The parent can read it, and if they're okay with how things are going, they don't have to bring it up. They don't have to say, how did the session go with Jared? Or how are you doing? Or where's your homework? Or do you think it's working? Or do you think your writing is getting stronger, because they got the email recap? And so, because a lot of times some parents are like, this is great, let's just do it. It sounds like this is a lot better than what's happening currently, So, it's like, I have to hold myself accountable, which means I have to listen, and I have to have a plan, and I have to have tools. I have to hold the kid accountable, because that's our subject. I also have to have the parents accountable, because sometimes they may be just habitually doing something that is not going to lead to growth, or maybe, even, stagnation, if that makes sense.
No, totally. And it's just, it makes sense, because then the parents know exactly what's going on. Because I know I shouldn't even say just teenagers. My 9-year-old does it too. Like, so what did you do today? Nothing. What'd you learn? Nothing.
Right.
Like,
Right. Yeah.
And the parents,
it's
right. I was just gonna say that as parents, like, we want to know, well, is our money, like, are we spending money? Is something happening? But that you give that update, is that reassurance.
Yeah. And Francis, you bring up a great point, because a lot of people do pay me, and they want to see results. And so of course that's understandable. And now we have to deal with expectations, and the expectations are dangerous, because they can quickly become premeditated resentments. They can say, wait, I'm paying this money, and I don't see much change, or the grades haven't really improved that much, or something like that. And so what's really going on? But the problem is that the problem, quote unquote, is multifactorial, and has been going on usually for years. So so on my contract, there is a little clause that I had to put in there many years ago that just says, if you're expecting really quick results or a huge uptick in grades or behavior, I'm not your guy, because that's what I've experienced. So if you have a first or second session, and a parent says, what do you think? Do you think is there hope? The most accurate answer and the most genuine answer is, I don't know yet. I'm just starting. Right. How could I know? So it's sort of like, but sometimes it's a really good story, because the parents or guardians might get in the habit of just filling me in on what they're seeing in the home, what they like, what they don't like. And then that gives me an opportunity to pick and choose, and then to pick and choose my approach and how I want to go about it, without pinning anything on the parents, but I can get at it. And then I can say, what's going on here or here or here. It could be a relationship. It could be social anxiety. It could be that the girl or guy is worried about an upcoming date, and they cannot do work because they're just stuck on the date. How am I going to look? How's it going to go? Is this real? He's so good looking, whatever it is. Right. And so then it's my job to say, okay, it's understandable that you're excited about the date, or nervous about the date, but we have 3 days before the date, and the work must get done one way or another. It's got to get done, because your first job at school or in college is to get the work done, or to learn, and of course we want you to have fun. That's why I say have fun and get things done. But, it starts with you, and then, better time management, and better focus, and better commitment, and better self-advocating with teachers and professors. And the end goal is always, if you do it, that you will have more fun, you'll get more things done, and you'll have more time for the dates and the frat parties and the fun, all that good stuff. But it sort of starts there, and often it takes a while for people to realize that, oh, this went really better because my Google Calendar was fully filled up. So I knew what I had to do. I knew that I had to do it before I went to the party or went to the football game or whatever. I did it. It was a good story.
Yeah, it makes it makes me think about, there's so many times that we'll procrastinate. I mean, even as adults, and put things off. And I'm thinking like, oh, I'll do it over the weekend. But then for the next 3 days, it's hanging over my head. And so I'm not in the moment. I'm not enjoying what I'm doing because it's hanging. And then if I would just take the 20 minutes and get the thing done, it would, that space in my head opens up for more fun.
Well, that's why, procrastination, as you know, is like, one of the huge hallmarks of many neurodivergent learners. And you can't really, it's not very easy to skirt around that. Because you just have, just like the Nike commercial says, just do it, don't put it off, do it to the best of your ability, and then move on, and to avoid like overwhelm, instead of focusing on grades like A, B, or C, or 90 versus 100 versus 70, we focus on processes, tools. So basically, if a kid's organized, then the outcome is almost always going to be better than if the kid is not organized. Right. And so if you see organization, you can just say, way to go. We're going in the right direction. Let's keep it real. Let's keep it rolling. And it's sort of, it makes it's commonsensical, but a lot of people don't always see that connection. And then when they do, they get more excited, which then promotes more inputs in the Google Calendar, more organization, more time management, because they sort of start to see, that it's working, and so, but the bottom line is that we have to meet the client where he or she is. You can't, you may have to start off slower than you ever have in the past, and then ramp up, because every kid is different. If I get a referral from one therapist, sometimes he goes, you got to go real slow with this one. I'm telling you right now, speak slowly, lower the volume, and then we might go into the particulars of that kid, but that's good guidance, and then, but with every client at some point, sometimes you have to say, it's time to go. Let's go. We've sort of done it halfway here. We missed a little bit here, or, even after I showed you just to say, yep, I got the email, or got you, or we're good, or whatever, it's still not, you're still not responding. What's the problem? What's stopping you?
Right. And when I'm hearing, I hate grades, society puts so much on grades. And
absolutely. Yeah.
The sad thing is like, when you look at the grades, there are some people that get straight A's without even cracking a book.
Absolutely.
They don't have to do anything. And then others that are struggling and, work so hard and they get that C, but it's only a C. And our society makes the A look so much better than the C, where in reality, the C is the one that did all the work and the effort behind it.
Yeah, and so I say that the most important word in the English language is try, 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 because that addresses your point. Then you're not comparing an A student to a C student, or an A paper to a C paper. You're looking to see for evidence of a real attempt at whatever the task is. And then the second two most important words following try is try harder. But you see, so you're working with the situation. And if those things are done, the grades will always be better. The outcomes will always be better, because they could not be, because the person who before now has maybe not tried much, or maybe listened to someone who called them, quote, stupid or dumb, and all those negative things that we hear, especially in this space, now they're starting to say, well, I just took that as the gospel. I didn't try because why would I? I'm stupid, right? I'm dumb. I'm not, what's the point? Somebody told me that the best job I'm going to have is whatever, and I didn't like that. So why should I try? So you have to reverse that. Like with writing, there's some kids, and the same thing is with playing. Some kids will come on the screen like we are right now, and they'll say, I don't plan, and I'm not going to plan. So there you go. You have to work with that. You might have to, and they might say, and besides, I don't have to plan because I don't plan to go to college. And then you might say, well, what do you plan to do? And they might say, well, I'm pretty entrepreneurial. So, and I've been selling sneakers on the sneakers stock market. So that's what I'm going to do. So then you might say, well, and let's say we're talking about writing. They are not going to write about history or English. They will refuse.
Right.
But if you tell them to write a really good paragraph using the tool you just gave them in terms of writing, like a body paragraph, but telling me and explaining to me why it's hard to succeed at the sneaker stock market, then they'll do it because this is something that they like. They get it. They want to make money. They're interested. They're engaged. And that's happened numerous times where, they might say, I hate English, I hate history, so don't teach me any of that stuff. I say, okay, what do you like? What floats your boat? And then from there, you sit there and write about that. And then you get less resistance because you're like, this guy's working with me. I might as well do something here, and sometimes they see really good results. And then hopefully we can transfer that, the writing about the sneaker stock market, to whatever they have to do to make themselves more productive and happy in whatever they choose to do.
Right. It's happened to their, to their zones, to where their genius zone is.
Right.
Interest
or
levels,
their interest.
Yeah. Kids are like, I don't want to read that. It's, it's boring. Who wants to read history? You're right. Okay. Let's make it a little more fun. And, can you pick out, the top 3, whatever in the reading?
Mm-hmm.
Put fun into it.
Yeah. But I mean, so, I'm seeing more and more that, there are a lot of sort of delusional thoughts and, sort of false narratives going on. I've had a couple of clients over the last couple of years that, they reject school or something, and then I say, what will you do? And then I say, well, everyone's making money in Bitcoin trading, so I'm going to do Bitcoin. Okay, but when you look at the actual reality, very few people make money on Bitcoin, and more to the point, almost nobody makes money on Bitcoin unless they know exactly what they're doing. And so, now if you contrast that with the kid who says that but isn't willing to really understand Bitcoin or look at how it works or what it is, then the probability is low that he or she's going to make any money in Bitcoin or make a career out of it. So sometimes you have to challenge like, oh, really? Well, have you Bitcoin traded before? Have you made any money? And sometimes you find out they haven't even tried it. They don't know much about it, or they lost money, or it's just a way to avoid what, the more quote unquote normal path. Same thing with, I was coaching somebody a couple of years ago. They said, I'm going to be a realtor. They make tons of money. Okay. And, but the thing is, they didn't know anything. Right. And so I said, I linked them up with a couple of realtors that I knew and said, just spend a day with them and see the whole day, from beginning to end, cold calls, visits, showing houses, dealing with a family that might insist that the realtor takes them to 12 houses, but will never make a contract offer. Right. And then see how it feels. Understand that when you're on commission, it means that only when you close the deal do you get paid anything. Understand this. So, so part of our job as adults or as coaches or therapists or whatever, or advocates, is to say what's real and what's not real. And are you really willing to do this? Do you even understand what you're saying? Do you understand what you're talking about? And then the next question, and this is the only question, is, are you willing to research this before you make the decision that you're going to be a Bitcoin trader or a realtor without any context or information, instead of focusing on school or whatever?
And the work behind it. It reminds me of, basketball players, professional basketball players will be like, oh, they make millions, and I just want to shoot hoops. But, they don't see the player that misses the free throw. And after the game for 3 hours, will sit there, free throw after free throw after free throw.
Absolutely.
So that he doesn't do it again.
Yeah. Absolutely. And that's what I always bring up with, athletes. They always bring up, they might bring up Michael Jordan being the best ever, right? Or Kobe Bryant. So Michael Jordan has a lot of videos about this where everyone's always like, you're the best or whatever. You're so rich. Life must have been so easy. And his resounding message is, no, it was not. And then to your point, he was in the gym all the time. We all know that he got cut from the 9th grade team. He had to fight to get back on varsity. And there are all these videos that are highlighting that I worked my butt off on the court and I pushed everyone else around me as a leader. This is what was required. The same things for Kobe Bryant, the same things for many other athletes where, they just see the end result and then, they go gaga or see stars or money or whatever. But it's to your point, it's the work. It's like what happened between, age 10 and 18 before he got drafted.
It's the will behind the skill.
Yeah, the will behind the skill. Exactly. It's like the skill. There are tons of people that I coach and other people coach that have sky high IQs. super smart. So it's not the skill, but they may have ADHD or something. And so where the will comes in is, will you text me more clearly every day what you have to do for the next day? Will you make sure and then double check your Google Calendar and then cross check it with your specific student portal to make sure you haven't missed anything big or small? That's the will part. If we can get that, we're all, there are a lot of therapists that I talk to and they get referrals from and refer to, and a lot of them focus on just a couple things. One is consistency. Are we getting more consistent? Are we growing? If the kid texted only once and he's supposed to text every day for the week, can we get it to 3 or 4 times per week? That's growth. That's a win. As opposed to A, B, or C, or 90 or 80 or 70, 4 texts versus 1 text is a win. If a Google Calendar was, very unfull or incomplete, and then a week or 2 later, it's much more populated, it's a huge win. I mean, we should celebrate.
Right. It's like, and what comes to mind for me was truancy, because I've had a lot of truancy cases with DC Superior Court. And, the kids never going to school. We get the kid to go to school once a week. Like, that's a celebration. Yeah, but the school's like, he needs to be here every day. I'm like, can you just celebrate the once a week? Because if he feels the hooray for once a week, he's going to want to come back the next day,
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, a lot of it is, to your point, I only coach with positive reinforcement. So for example, if a kid doesn't do much during the week, from one session to the next session, like let's say it's weekly sessions, Monday at 5 p.m., then the next session will be the next Monday at 5 p.m. If the kid just drops the ball for whatever reason, no homework submitted, didn't do the homework, was totally unprepared for the math test, whatever it is, then what a lot of people will say, including parents, would be, "What were you thinking?" That's what they'll say. They'll scream it. What were you thinking? You knew the test was here and there's no preparation. So why are you surprised when you got a D or an F? I don't do that. I say, let's look at your text. Let's look at, how much, what happened, the actual concrete granular details. What happened during this week? Where did you manage your time? Where did you spend your time? What did you focus on? When you had a question, did you self-advocate with the teacher? Did you send the teacher an email? Did you request to get a quick tutor, in that subject? Because there's always tons of tutors that are at the ready, right? And that's where the rubber really hits the road. It's like, it's not, so if I'm with a kid or anyone, and a lot of things were dropped in the prior week, the only job we have is, what can we do to prevent this from happening the next week? What do we have to make up for? What are the priorities? Who do you have to email? Who do you have to ask for an extension? Where are you confused in terms of like an essay prompt? What stopped you last week to say, I can't even do this? Like, I don't even know what the teacher's asking. What concrete steps on a daily or whatever basis do you have to take so that we can make up the work, keep rolling, and not have a disaster semester or all that stuff?
Right. Because what were you thinking? All the kid hears is, I'm a failure. I wasn't thinking. And then
absolutely,
where do they go from there?
Yeah, but to the parents' credit, because we jump a fine line. Like, it's okay. It's okay. It's not crazy to think that. Like, what were the whole week was going by. There were big assessments due. You knew it. Maybe it wasn't at the top of your mind, but you knew it. Then you went in there, and and some kids, not all, but some kids will be upset. They'll say, "Oh, I did really poorly on an exam." And then you say, okay, well, let's look at the text and let's, when did you prepare? Not much. I didn't really prepare. Then how did you think you were going to do well? I don't know. So a lot of kids say, I don't know. And this happens a lot because I do a lot of Zoom calls with therapists. And, we share the kid. And sometimes I've been in sessions where the therapist, it's a lot of therapists who personally will say, you say, I don't know a lot. And that doesn't work. Like, I don't know. You know something. Either you were distracted, or you were in love with video games, or you were fantasizing about a date, or you're fantasizing about a cheeseburger, but something was going on within the space of 24 hours or whatever that prevented you from focusing on whatever this task was, or it was fear, or it was complete confusion, or it was it was maintaining this attitude of, I got this, so I am not going to email the teacher any clarifying questions to know what I should expect and how I should prepare for this big math calculus test or whatever, Spanish quiz.
It's so funny you say that.
Rough draft, whatever.
Right. It reminds me of like the personal growth seminars I did way back when. And
Yeah.
if you ever said, I don't know, the response was always, well, if you did know, what would the answer be?
Oh, that's good. I like that. Yeah.
Right. Because we do know, we know, we're just, we're blocking it out. And so then it just makes you think differently.
Absolutely. Yeah. I like that a lot. You know, what you just said I really appreciate it. It makes a lot of sense because sometimes you have to like step out to get back in with anybody. Like those, like instead, because a lot of people, like, let's say the normal people, like whoever they are, right? They might be more prone to say like, what were you thinking? But the more creative person or the person who really wants better results might say, okay, what were you doing? And how did you see this sort of playing out? Or maybe did you not see this playing out at all? Did you not? Because some people cannot see the connection between sort of lack of effort and then a bad outcome. They really can't. They're like, we call it, a lot of therapists call it hanging on hope. They're like, it'll be all right. It's all good. It'll somehow it will work out. And then that's what you sort of have to point out, like, how would it work out since you're the architect of your own life if you did nothing? And, for example, the simplest thing is the phone. The phone is the enemy. The kids are, screen addiction is huge. And sometimes on my email recaps, which go directly to the students, especially the ones at colleges and university, is, I'm going to put on the email in caps, put the phone down, put the phone down, put the phone down. Then as a reward, and, we all deal with like rewards and, all that, positive reinforcement, rewards, consequences, then as a reward, turn the phone back on, but only after you've done what you were supposed to do, the work. Go to the library, turn the phone off. The minute you're done, turn it back on. It's actually more efficient because you're not responding back and forth in real time. You're seeing all the gorgeous texts after you've done the work. You get those done, and then you go have your, fun.
Right. No, it makes so much sense. I heard so much about, and I want to find out more about your program. So I know you said something about like an hour a week and then texting every day. Like, how is it when somebody engages with you? What does the program look like?
The program is really that I make a bargain with the parent and with the kid, which is that if they follow roughly 80% of what I suggest, then the parent cannot, quote, nag them about academic stuff. That doesn't transcend to other stuff, which some kids try to, play. Like there have been kids who said, Jared said you can't bug me about anything. That's not true. You still have to take out the trash, do the dishes, help with the laundry or whatever. But but the bargain is for real, that if the kid is really doing roughly 80% of what I'm doing in terms of texting, planning, prioritizing, self-advocating with teachers, actually doing the work, focusing, accepting help is a big one. People don't want to accept help. So the thing is, if they do that, then the bargain holds. And a lot of kids, especially in these, soupy, toxic, poisonous family dynamics that have occurred and grown over time, they love it. Like if I say to a guy, how does that sound to not be asked by your parents for 3 months if you're not, where you are with your work? Are you ready for the quiz? Are you prepared for the test? Is your essay good? Did you do the rough draft? Would you like for all that to go away? Almost all of them say, hell yes, let's do it. Right. Then when the rubber hits the road is when does it happen?
Right. As a parent, I'm like, oh my God, I don't have to ask my kid anymore.
Yeah, right. Well, that is one of the appeals, But it's important that when you posit that equation, the bargain, the negotiation, or the no nagging rule, it's the inverse too. If you don't do anything, they can be all over you. They love you. They're your parents. They're paying for you. They had you. They expect something. They want some results. So but it all comes down to it's your choice. And sometimes I have to say to the kid or any client, it's your life. And I have to repeat it. It's your life. And, you see you don't know if it's going, it's your life. And sometimes they look like, what are you talking about? Like, because it's your life. I say your parents are largely irrelevant to you, except that they love you and will always support you. But, above that, you have to carve out your own life. You have to carve out your job. You have to make your money. You have to make your career. You have to figure it out, And sometimes that works when they hear it that way, because, it's going counter to the enabling thing.
Right. And it's giving them ownership of, I don't have to.
Absolutely.
Yes, you have to do what your parents say to an extent, but it's your
Right.
life. Do you want to get there in life or not?
Yeah, absolutely. And that is where this concept that a lot of therapists talk about and coaches, which is, the concept of natural consequences, which is so hard to do if you're a parent or anyone, but it's critical often, because that's what often is the sort of driver for growth, right? So if, so sometimes, if you get a call or email from a mom, like, they haven't done any work, it's a huge test, it's worth so many points, we're heading for a D if this doesn't get addressed, right? Sometimes the best response is let the kid fail, which you've heard before, and everyone's heard it, let the kid fail, but because there's we cannot rescue or save anyone, really. All we control is two things in our lives: our attitudes and our actions. That's it.
Right.
There's nothing else we can really control. If you yell at a kid, the odds are it's not going to help. What were you thinking doesn't usually help. So you can just say to that point, to mom or dad, or even to the kid, you're going to do what you're going to do in the end. Life is full of choices. You make the choice, and then you either reap the rewards or suffer the consequences. And all the theories. When you hit rock bottom, then you grow. Like it's like when it's like the story of the alcoholic. The alcoholic lost his family, his wife, his kids, his retirement fund, and he's about to jump off a cliff. And then God calls down and says, would you consider stop drinking now? And he goes, can I get back to you on that? Can I get back to you on that? So, there is a lot of that. It's like, okay, this is important, this is serious, but do we have to do it now? But if not now, when? It's like, you've heard that. Like, it's like, right. What you want to wait another year and like get, average grades, have no direction, get yelled at a lot. Like, that doesn't sound good to me. Does it sound good to you? I'd rather work really hard than have a lot of fun and play sports. How about you?
Right.
So to your point, to your point, ownership and agency, like the more you can give them, the better. And then you hope they run with it. And if they don't run with it, then you ask them why, or you tell them that sometimes stories are the best coaching tools ever. I can tell a kid who's got imposter syndrome and is like, is stuck. And it's because he's comparing. Comparison is the worst thing, because there's only two outcomes to comparing. Either you become vain because you think you're better than the person, or you become bitter because you feel you're not as good. So the answer there is don't compare. Do your thing. Do your thing. Run with it, and then let's let the chips fall where they may. That has always worked for me. A lot of these maxims that these principles that people say, like my dad used to say, and he was a pretty tough guy, and he wanted straight A's, and whether he said it or not, it was very clear, because one day I came home with B+, and his only question was, what happened? Like, what happened here? And I'm thinking, what do you mean what happened? I tried pretty hard. I got a B+. It's a hard school, and I wanted to have fun, or I wanted to go to a party, or I wanted to see my girlfriend, or whatever. So what do you mean what happened? But to the point, you can make tons of mistakes and not be a fool. I'm living proof of it. I've made plenty of mistakes, but I'm still living, and I'm still being sometimes quite effective, right? So it's like, some of these principles, I'm sure you could throw out 3 right now that sound good, 20 years ago, but don't work,
Right.
My biggest one that I say that some people make fun of is, if nothing changes, then nothing changes.
Exactly.
Are we going to change? It's felt like a lot of parents are like this too. It's like, that makes sense. Like, not much is changing. So what do we do?
If you keep doing what you've always done, you'll always get what you've always gotten.
Right. And as you've heard this many times. That's the definition of insanity. And so we don't want to be insane anymore. That's part of the whole rub. Like, let's stop being insane. And I'm not trying to be like jokey here. I'm just saying, let's be real. And what do you want out of this experience? And then how can I support you and help you? And I'll do anything I can to do that. That's one of the biggest messages when you're trying to establish rapport. It's like, I got you, I'm with you, let's go. I had a kid who he had to do really well on a final research paper. This was a couple of years ago, and he usually would procrastinate and everything. And I said, I will look at that paper anytime it's ready. Normally, I would not do this, but you have to take situations as they are. And he says, "What do you mean?" I said, "If you call me at 2 a.m., I will get up, have some coffee, and I'll review the whole research paper. And you have to be on the other end of that Google Docs and be willing to either accept or reject my suggestions, and then submit the paper on time." So sometimes. A lot of it just really comes down to rapport, because a lot of people, like a lot of therapists, don't succeed because they have not established rapport or good rapport. And so like our friend David Levin, shout out to David Levin, he's a master at rapport. He calls himself very unconventional. On the website, it's all about unconventional, and he is unconventional. So am I, and I think that's a good thing if you want outcomes, good results, good vibes, and hopefully like a better direction and improvement and not like declines.
Right. And I just noticed the time, and I know we have to wrap up. So do you work with only high school and college, or what age grade?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I work with middle school, high school, college, graduate school, and then there's a whole sector that I love working with, and that's sort of like 20s through 35 or so, which is failures to launch. So these are more, to me, they're more interesting in the sense that, if you're doing middle school, high school, and even college, you're going to repeat certain things that are just necessary. Show me the Google Calendar, show me the text. Are they clear? Are you self-advocating? Are you on top of things? Are you feeling better? Good. Let's go. But with the failure to launch, now you're dealing with people who might have tried and failed, or they might have gone to law school. Then they took their first job in law. They realized they hated billable hours, and now they need to make a change. So again, it's just got to be hands-on, interactive coaching. What didn't you like about the law thing? Okay, what do you what are your strengths and weaknesses? Okay, and now let me reach out to the people I know, and then you go and have coffee or lunch with them, and then really ask all these questions. What's good about your job? What do you hate about your job? How much money do you make? So we don't make another mistake. And with failure to launch, as you know, it's many of the kids might be neurodivergent, but they also have other things on there like addictions, alcohol, weed, vaping, all these things, screen time. It does, all the, and so what do we have to do? Well, it's very hard to get a kid from age 20 to 33, to be honest, to go to, let's say, AA. It's very hard, but there's a whole body of knowledge and practice in therapy, which is, instead of complete elimination of the bad habit, is harm reduction. So that's our next goal. So I have a guy who I was coaching, and he was having like too many beers per night. And I said, let's go from, let's just say 9 beers to 3 beers over 2 weeks. Can you do that? If we've done that, that's a win.
Right.
It's a win.
Right. 100%. And so
what else are we supposed to do?
Right.
Yeah. People reach me. I just email. I check my email obsessively. So I check my email, text. A lot of stuff happens on text, as you know, these days. And then we usually do a quick, or not even quick, sometimes it's long chat about how I work, what I do, and that they, this whole thing of getting the email recaps is important. They love that. Oh, I'm gonna know, but I don't have to look at the portal. You're gonna handle the portal, Jared? Yes, I am. Great. Like that. So, and then I send out a series of questions that addresses not just the student part, the teaching part, and the learning part, which is important. Like, who is your best tutor, your worst tutor, and why? Who is your kid's best teacher, worst teacher, and why? What is your worst fear as a parent? Explain. And then you're getting really into it. And then it's other things that will help me to increase the rapport and the identification, like what are your kids' favorite sports or heroes, favorite foods, what would really piss him or her off? Tell me now so I don't do it. Things like that. Right. Then they provide answers. It can be bullets, whatever, and then they return the contract, and then that's it.
Yeah, that is awesome. And I know we're going to have your email and phone number in the show notes below. Thank you so much, Jared. This was so awesome and wonderful.
Yeah, it was fun. Thank you very much. Yeah, it was great. Wait, did you say, should I shout out to other professionals?
Oh, you can. You want to give a shout out?
So there's a guy named Eric Kaufman out of California who does leadership development for neurodevelopment learners. And he runs a great shop, and he's great. There's a woman professional named Ronnie Landeck, and she can be reached at Ronnie Landeck, Landeck Coaching. And she does one-on-one and group sales coaching with a very holistic approach. So she's trying to hit all angles and not just like, how can we up your quota for, the month? And then we already mentioned David Levin of the ADHD Chesapeake Center. He's awesome. He's the real deal. I don't even care if he's controversial. He's very effective. He's very fun. And he's got a huge waiting list. So I think that spells volumes. And the last one I'll mention is someone I recently met, and his name is John Perlman, Perlman, and he's the owner of JMP Counseling. And the thing that really impressed me about John Perlman is that he focuses like a laser beam on each individual, and then that leads to really the best college fit for each kid. So he just seems to have a much larger breadth of knowledge, and he's got sort of like a sixth sense of what would or would not work in terms of the college environment, the social part, the frats, the sororities, So he asked questions that most of the counselors I've never heard asked, like, okay, what high school did he go to? How was his high school experience? Is he an athlete? Is he a partier? And then he sort of like fits that all into his big brain, and then he spits out, great answers.
That's awesome. Thank you so much. I will definitely reach out to all of these people.
Oh yeah, sure. Absolutely. Yeah. All right. Sounds good.
Thank you.
Thanks very much.
You've been listening to Stress-Free IEP with your host, Francis Shefter. Remember, you do not need to do it all alone. You can reach Francis through shefterlaw.com, where prior episodes are also posted. Thank you for your positive reviews, comments, and sharing the show with others through YouTube, LinkedIn, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, and more.